Genoa, Tuesday, August the 14th, 2018, 11:36 a.m. The Morandi Bridge, the motorway viaduct that runs through the city, suddenly collapses. 22,000 tons of concrete fall into the void, together with cars and trucks.
I found myself falling through the air, and I thought I would die.
È una strage, ragazzi, è una strage.
I didn't think I would make it.
The catastrophe killed 43 people and displaced hundreds.
So we ran away, without taking anything, just our lives. We could only run for our lives.
It was the most serious tragedy in recent history caused by a bridge failure.
A bridge that collapses is a betrayal.
What led to such a disaster? Some witnesses say they saw a flash of light.
I saw some flashes too.
Could lightning have possibly hit a girder?
And we saw the bridge break up.
Some people say that a heavy metal coil fell off a truck. Could the violent impact of the coil have shattered the bridge deck?
It looked like a war zone.
Or perhaps the collapse can be attributed to aging and deteriorating construction materials. Maybe the bridge had simply reached the end of its days.
It was shock. No piece of infrastructure should cause so much damage and so much loss of life.
Genoa, August the 13th. The city is almost empty. Many people are already on vacation. The last few remaining in town are setting off on the highway. Squeezed between the mountains and the sea, the A10 motorway is the main artery connecting northern Italy, France, and the port of Genoa, one of the most important on the Mediterranean. No matter what direction you're heading, you end up taking the motorway and passing over the Morandi Bridge, which crosses the city and connects East Genoa with West Genoa. With two main spans supported by three high pylons and reinforced concrete cables called stays, the viaduct crosses the industrial area, the river Polcevera, the railway, houses and neighborhoods. The morning of August the 14th, Genoa wakes up soaked in rain and the weather does not bode well.
L'allerta diventa arancione sul centro levante ligure per temporali che potrebbero essere localmente forti, organizzati e persistenti.
The night shift ends for Davide Capello at the Savona Fire Department.
I had just finished my shift at 8 o'clock, and I was going to Genoa because I also trained the young Genoa goalkeepers. So I went to the old port to get my card renewed, so I could enter the stadium.
Early in the morning, Claudia Posetti leaves home to go to the seaside with her family.
Claudia and Andrea wanted to stay on the coast for 2 or 3 days, and I have decided to take Claudia's children from a previous marriage along with them.
The night before, we all had dinner together. It was a beautiful night. And that was the last time we saw them.
Giusy, who lives under the bridge on Poro Street, is taking advantage of the summer rain.
I was right outside the front door on Poro Street, pulling up the weeds on the sidewalk.
Giusy's daughter, Monica, lives on the ground floor of that same building.
Eccola! I took a video of the garden and the bridge, which I'd never done before.
Sì, comunque il Ponte Morandi conferma in tutta la sua bellezza che qua piove a dirotto.
A friend of ours who lives next door saw me and said, "What a great idea. With this rain, you can pull up the weeds more easily."
Then it started raining very hard, so I said, Giusy, enough now. We've already cleaned enough.
Given the bad weather, Camilla and Marina decide to hunt for bargains at a second-hand shop called the Recycling Factory.
Passing in front of the recycling factory, we saw it was open, and I insisted on stopping in because I love antique furniture.
And we decided to have a look around.
It's 11:30 a.m., 5 minutes before the collapse.
We had found little to nothing and we were thinking about leaving. But it was raining very hard, so my mom, who didn't want to get her hair wet, decided to stay a little longer.
I just had my hair done, so I said, "No, Camilla, please, let's wait 5 minutes."
I was studying, and at the same time texting a friend, sending him pictures from the night before, when I was dancing happily.
As soon as I left the tunnel, it started raining harder.
"10 seconds to go. These are the last cars that managed to pass under the bridge before it collapses.
I remember I was crossing pylon number 9 when suddenly I heard a muffled noise nearby.
I heard a very loud noise. I saw some flashes of light too. I thought lightning might have struck a girder or something.
The earth shook and I took shelter inside the front door.
Suddenly, I saw that the tarmac was slowly sinking.
This huge pylon caught my attention because it was disintegrating right in front of my eyes.
The cars in front of me were tumbling down like carts thrown into the air.
We looked out the building's big windows.
And we saw the bridge break apart. It broke like a breadstick in front of our eyes.
And then it fell down all around us.
Oddio santo! Porca puttana!
I instinctively tried to brake, hoping I wouldn't slip into that void, but then I found myself falling too. I could hear the debris shattering the car windows and raising me. I instinctively let go of the steering wheel and I put my hands behind my head. I thought I was going to die.
Davide Capello plummets into the void together with the entire pylon number 9. But what triggered the collapse of the bridge? Let's go back to those fatal final seconds. It's 11:36 a.m. when an entire section of the Morandi bridge, 244 meters long, starts to break up. According to the reconstruction carried out by a group of international experts, the structure would have taken 30 seconds to collapse. A break in one cable stay could have triggered a fatal chain reaction. Based on this simulation, without support, the deck on which the road surface rests twists and falls. In 30 seconds, the entire structure collapses, dragging cars and trucks down with it. Davide Capello's grey SUV flips into the deck's truss network.
My car got stuck. I don't know where. I couldn't see anything around me.
22,000 tons of asphalt and cement fall onto the recycling factory, onto the riverbed, and the railway tracks. They even reach the houses on Poro Street.
First, there was a loud noise. Then, silence. A silence of death.
Tremendous. A tremendous silence. Then the voices, the screams began.
I started to hear people screaming. My upstairs neighbor, the children were crying, the sound of people on the staircase running out.
I ran upstairs to warn my parents.
Hearing my daughter screaming for me really scared me.
I told her, Mom, the bridge fell down. And she said, what bridge? So I said, the bridge, Mom.
Non ci posso credere. Ho sentito un boato, mi sembrava il terremoto. E poi l'ho visto.
I looked up, and the stump of the bridge was right over my head. And that scared me to death, because we didn't know whether it was going to collapse as well.
Before leaving my house, I took a picture. Part of it was still standing over our houses. People thought it was going to fall down shortly.
So we ran away, without a thing, just our lives. We could only run for our lives.
Barely a minute after the collapse, the emergency services start to receive the first frantic calls.
Sì, è il numero unico di emergenza, ha bisogno?
È venuto giù il ponte del Morandi, è venuto giù.
C'è stato un crollo?
Il ponte Morandi, è venuto giù la campata quella che ha sul fiume.
Ragazzi, è una strage.
A few minutes later, I plucked up my courage and unfastened my safety belt. I started looking for my phone inside the car, but I couldn't find it. Then I realized the touchscreen was still turned on. So I immediately called the fire department. I talked to the colleagues I had said hi to at the shift change. I warned them that it had fallen, that the bridge had collapsed. They asked me in which direction, and I said there is no direction anymore. There isn't any bridge.
Pronto, numero unico emergenza. È sempre collato il ponte Moranto, quello su Procevera. È venuto sul viadotto della Morandi. Guarda, io abito sotto il ponte Morandi, è venuto sul ponte. Si spaccò il ponte, è venuto giù, sarà 100 metri di ponte.
A colleague came to me and said, listen, Morandi Bridge has collapsed. I was baffled. What do you mean collapsed? He told us it collapsed.
I said, guys, listen, the Morandi Bridge is the one on the motorway. It's the Brooklyn Bridge.
That's what we call it here in Genoa, the Brooklyn Bridge.
È venuto giù il ponte di Brooklyn. È venuto giù il ponte di Brooklyn, ragazzi, è una strage.
I can still recall the crew chief's voice. I will never forget it. You won't believe what I'm seeing. It felt like he had arrived in a war zone.
The Morandi Bridge opened on September the 4th, 1967, in the presence of the President of Italy, Giuseppe Saragat. It was considered a futuristic structure that the city was proud of.
I was born a few hundred feet away from that bridge. I saw them build it.
My father used to call it the bridge with the suspenders. He took me to the opening ceremony. I remember that day. I walked to a point where you could see our house below.
Riccardo Morandi designs a bridge built entirely of reinforced concrete. The characteristic that makes it famous is the three A-shaped towers. With the help of 4 stays, each tower supports the deck on which the road runs. It was a masterpiece of engineering for the time that allowed a reduction of the number of load-bearing pylons, as in the case of Genoa, where the space below is occupied by the railway and by numerous houses and buildings. But this isn't the only innovation.
Morandi Bridge was a big piece of innovation for its time. Pre-stressed concrete and the use of cable stays were both very new technologies in the early 1960s when this bridge was designed.
The other great innovation introduced by Morandi is in the stays. These are high-strength steel cables coated with pre-stressed concrete. But that compressed concrete protection considered almost eternal at the time, would prove to be the bridge's Achilles heel. Over time, the humidity, filled with sea salt and pollutants, penetrates the pores in the cement and corrodes the cables. The steel rusts and swells until it fractures the cement. But above all, the coating makes it difficult to check how much the cables have deteriorated.
The Morandi Bridge exhibited signs of problems with the cables very early in its life. When it was maybe only 10 years old, there were signs of corrosion on the cables.
It's well known that during the 80s, Morandi himself was quite negative about the state of preservation of that bridge.
Could corrosion therefore have weakened the stays enough to cause the bridge to collapse? What is certain is that Morandi's decision to suspend the deck from a single pair of stays causes the balance of forces to be concentrated in only a few points. Any accidental event could create a fatal risk.
But when you only have one cable, there's nowhere else for that force to go. There's a lack of redundancy in the structure, and that is almost certainly a factor in the design and the ultimate failure of the Morandi Bridge.
A little more than 50 years later, what's left of that futuristic structure is only big concrete blocks and twisted iron. Less than 10 minutes later, hundreds of firemen, law enforcement personnel and medical staff arrive at the scene of the catastrophe. What they see looks like the scene of a bombing.
As soon as we arrived, we felt silent. There was an unbelievable silence on the radio.
An unbelievable silence. You could hear only the sound of pounding water, broken only by the rumble of thunder in the distance. It was like hell.
Guarda quel tir che è caduto di sopra, porca troia. I think I stayed inside the car another 20 or 25 minutes. I was scared to get out of the car. I was afraid I might fall even further.
We went looking for people inside the cars. Some cars were empty, and that was very disturbing because if the car was empty, then the occupant had to be somewhere nearby.
I heard the voices of the first rescuers looking for survivors, so I plucked up my courage. I clambered out through the rear window. I climbed through the debris, and I went towards a safer area.
The thing that shocked me the most immediately upon arrival was seeing the road turned upside down and the cars with their wheels up.
I remember the cars hammered into the ground. It seemed like a missile had hit that bridge and disintegrated everything.
Meanwhile, news of the disaster in Genoa spread quickly.
My son, the little one who always has the phone in his hands, tells me, "Mom, a bridge fell down in Genoa." So I turn to my husband and I ask him, "Does Claudia take that bridge when she goes to the seaside?" And he says, "Sure, Nadia, anyone who goes to Liguria has to cross that bridge."
We started to call their phones desperately, but they didn't answer.
Mobile phones were ringing. You could hear the phones ringing. It was probably relatives and friends calling, and I must say that really shook me.
The top priority, the most important of all, is to look for people and save them. And in order to save them, you must identify and define the situation you are operating in. and you must understand it very quickly, and then do everything you can to save those people.
The ruins are impressive. Every gap between one block of cement and another can hold a survivor. Speed is of the essence. The first exploration is carried out with a call-out. No one answers, but maybe someone is still alive down there. Only dogs can move around easily among the large concrete blocks. With their trained sense of smell, they're still the most efficient way to find people, dead or alive.
The wrecked cars were crushed. In fact, we had some trouble because they had become twisted sheets of metal, and that was a problem for us to work properly.
44 dog units arrive. The dogs poke around the rubble unceasingly. Among them is Zoe, a 3-year-old golden retriever working in the field for the first time.
My dog cut herself too. She hurt herself on the wreckage of a car. When she came out, I saw that she was limping and losing a lot of blood. Luckily, we had our vet there, who treated her immediately.
The dogs find only corpses. Rescuers arrive at the recycling factory, where they hear a cry for help coming from within.
At first, I saw a sea of bottles, because a lorry had fallen there and scattered its cargo all along the street. It was like walking on a sea of soap. Trying not to fall down, I managed to reach the interior of the recycling factory, because mother and daughter, Marina and Camilla, were in there.
Tutto distrutto, tanti morti qua.
The mother is screaming and screaming and screaming. I can hear her calling, Camilla, Camilla.
I regained consciousness under the debris, and my throat was full of rocks. I couldn't see anything, but I managed to touch my mom with my hand.
I saw the mother, but I couldn't see the daughter. When I got closer, I realized she was almost under my feet, because I saw her right ear and a hand reaching out from under the debris.
My daughter couldn't talk. I mean, she could only whisper.
I whispered every problem I had to her because I could barely speak, while she could scream.
I then amplified that to the nth power. Help, there's water. Water's falling in her mouth and she can't breathe. Mommy, I'm dying. I can't take any more. I cried, she's dying. I was going mad.
Just then she screamed, Camilla's dead, she's dead. And we had to move these blocks of concrete with our bare hands, just 2 of us, because 5 of us couldn't work in there. It was a very tight space.
I said to her, I'm dying, Mommy, I love you. Mommy, I'm dying. And so she screamed, help my daughter, help her, get her out.
Those screams, the love of this mother, wound us up like an old alarm clock, you know. The more she screamed, Camilla, Camilla's dead, the more we lifted stuff of her.
Desperate cries also come from the pile of rubble of Pylon 9.
We could hear cries for help, although they weren't coming from beneath us, but rather from above. So we looked up and saw a mass of tangled iron, and there was a person inside it.
This lorry was folded over like a U, like a paper clip, like the ones you use to keep papers together.
The lorry was hanging in the air. A small part was holding it all up.
The fire brigade couldn't do anything from below, but he wanted to get down from there, we saw that. But if he had come out of the vehicle, he would have fallen 20 meters down.
Non ti muovere! Se viene giù la macchina!
So we climbed. We climbed with our bare hands, holding onto whatever we could.
Fermo lì, non ti muovere! Non ti muovere!
It wasn't easy to talk to him because he was long ways up there, but we found out his name was Gianluca, so we say, Gianluca, don't move, we're coming for you.
Sto arrivando, sei ai vicini, stai fermo!
Inside what's left of the recycling factory, the firemen keep working with their bare hands to pull mother and daughter out of the ruins.
As we progressed, we realized that Camilla was practically between her mother's legs. We had to get her mother out first. Then we could get the daughter out. There was no other way to do it.
He told me, don't you understand that we can pull her out if we don't pull you out first?
At that point, she looked at me and I could see she understood. So we took her out and the first aid personnel took care of her and took her to the hospital. Camilla was literally buried alive, but we never lost hope. I moved some blocks of rubble that, if you asked me to move them now, I wouldn't know how to.
They tried to pull me out. The pain was excruciating because my pelvis was broken. So that was the moment I felt the most intense pain.
Thank God, we slowly managed to free Camilla completely and pull her out of there.
Camilla's pelvis is broken in 5 places and she suffers multiple traumas from being crushed. But she is alive. Meanwhile, the attempt to rescue Gianluca Ardini, still trapped inside the lorry 25 meters up, risks jeopardizing the rescuers' lives too.
The big problem was that we were standing on the breeze. Frione and I had some safety anchoring points that we had secured wherever we could.
It was a terrible situation. The smallest thing could have sent us all tumbling down. The fireman, the lorry. He was also sitting next to a dead co-worker, so just imagine what it was like to be in that situation for hours.
After long and complex maneuvering with ropes, a fireman finally manages to reach Gianluca and to put a harness on him.
The problem was how to maneuver him. Every part of his body hurt. Wherever you touched him, he was in pain. Luckily, as soon as we started pulling, he popped out.
Gianluca and his rescuer are slowly lowered at the same time. It's a delicate operation. They have to steer clear of the railings. After 4 hours of complex rope maneuvers, Gianluca is hospitalized at San Martino Hospital. He has a compound fracture in his shoulder and is bruised all over. 45 days later, he returns home, where his rehabilitation continues. The rescuers still have to figure out how many vehicles have fallen off the bridge and how many people were inside them.
We could see the vehicles on the riverbed and the ones on the railway tracks, but we had to know how many there were under the rubble.
The initial reports say dozens of motor vehicles are involved, and perhaps a coach full of tourists too. In order to reach a reliable estimate, the firemen analysed the recordings of the A10 motorway's cameras. They count the vehicles that made it to the other side of the bridge. "16 cars, 2 vans and 5 lorries appear to be missing. This number of vehicles is definitely lower, however, than the one on the viaduct on any weekday. Why then did the Morandi Bridge decide to collapse precisely on that Tuesday, the 14th of August? Experts talk about fatigue.
The repeated loads cause deformations and resistance losses through phenomena that are commonly called fatigue. That's what happens when you take a piece of iron and bend it several times. In the end, it breaks.
Bridges in the 1950s and 60s were designed for much lighter traffic loads than we see nowadays. Often the traffic load or the traffic volume can be maybe as much as 10 times higher than the bridge was designed for.
Could the accumulated fatigue from over 50 years of service be responsible for the collapse? The Morandi Bridge had been specially monitored for decades. During the 90s, the stays of pylon 11 were reinforced, while the other 2 identical pylons were considered to be in good shape. Only after 2015 did the motorway operator Società Autostrade plan to carry out restoration work.
As they were studying how to structurally reinforce the pylons 9 and 10 of the viaduct over the river Polcevera, we at Milan Polytechnic University were contacted to research and analyze the dynamics of the bridge, which was done in October of 2017.
On 4 nights in October of 2017, Professor Gentile and the engineers from Milan Polytechnic recorded the vibrations of the stays.
By interpreting the vibrations that we measure following objective and scientific methods, we are able to determine if there are weak spots. If you're asking me if the bridge showed excessive vibrations, the answer is no. It vibrated like a normal bridge that's in use.
The Polytechnic was also commissioned to repeat the tests of pylons 9 and 10 once the programmed work to reinforce them had been carried out in the autumn of 2018. But the bridge collapsed before the works to strengthen the pylons had even begun. The residents of Podul Street, on the other hand, remember well the maintenance work that was carried out over their heads day and night in the first few months of 2018.
We couldn't bear it anymore, so I said, I'll film them, and let's see what happens.
Sono le ore 0:50 del 16 febbraio 2018.
I could hear the workers talking to each other. They were working right on the block that fell down later. The block over our house.
Six months later, Giusy, Monica and the other inhabitants of Podul Street have to leave their homes forever.
You didn't have much time and had to decide in a very short time what to take with you. It was heartbreaking.
I was getting ready thinking, I'm saying goodbye to my home forever. I took some pictures I had printed. In one picture I was with my sister. Before leaving I hung it on the wall. And I wrote something like, thank you for all the life you held. And I signed it, goodbye little house. And that was it. I closed the door.
More than 500 people would have to say goodbye to their homes and the memories of their lives there forever. The death count is updated hourly. The official news reports talk about 22 bodies found under the rubble. But many are still missing.
We wondered how many people we'll still have to save. Meanwhile, we also have to count the dead, which were already numerous. That was obvious.
The emergency plan for a massive influx of patients with injuries is launched at San Martino Hospital.
After a short while, we realized the people arriving weren't injured, they were dead. And we didn't know how many more were coming.
We were informed that the overwhelming majority of people had been taken to San Martino Hospital. They let us in and seated us. Meanwhile, Marcello, this kid's father, wasn't there. He was on holiday. The first big problem was, what shall we do about Marcello? Should we phone him?
You could tell something very bad had happened. That they were almost certainly on that bridge that had collapsed.
A long night of waiting begins for relatives of the missing.
They had us sit in a waiting room where there were lots of people. Some were crying, some were talking with doctors. And there we were, all by ourselves, almost in a stupor.
Then, all of a sudden, a doctor approached us and told us she needed to talk with us. And we knew immediately.
And she told us they didn't make it. At that point, we had to tell their dad. I was the one who talked with Marcello. It was horrible. Saying this thing to a dad was horrible.
It's not natural to lose your children. It's not natural. It's something... It's like they rip out a piece of you.
We accompanied all 43 families to identify the bodies.
We didn't see them. We identified my sister with a picture of a tattoo she had on her back, on her neck, of her two children's names.
I identified my children by what could have been shreds of their clothes.
While the families prepare to bury their dead, a car with 3 people is still missing. During the night, the firemen continue to look for them among the metal crushed flat by the weight of the fallen concrete. The whole world wonders what caused so much pain. The answer may lie in this hangar, where parts of the ruins are kept as evidence for the investigators. These blocks of concrete and twisted iron will reveal the chain of events and responsibility that led to the collapse of the Genoa Bridge. For the moment, the most plausible hypothesis points a finger at the failure of one of the stays on pylon 9. A second hypothesis imagines instead that the deck was the first to collapse. In any case, it's still unclear whether the collapse can be attributed to internal causes, such as the corrosion of the cable stays or the fatigue of the materials, or whether it was instead caused by something accidental, such as a bolt of lightning a load fallen from a truck, or some other external cause. Whatever the cause, Genoa's tragedy puts the safety and monitoring of bridges in the spotlight throughout the world.
There are a lot of bridges at risk of collapsing in the world, and we are probably doing too little about them.
Bridge authorities need to have a regular regime of maintenance. They need to inspect the bridges so they know what deterioration is happening.
Bridges need to be monitored, but really monitored. We can no longer afford such a huge mistake, not anymore.
Saturday morning. The shutters roll down. Activity at the harbour comes to a halt. A sorrowful, grieving Genoa rallies around the families of the victims during the state funeral. When it fell, the bridge dragged down 43 lives with it.
The day of the funeral left a mark on all our hearts. The pavilion on Genoa's fairgrounds was crowded with people. People understood that we poured into it our skills, our commitment, our experience, but most of all, our hearts.
Genoa citizens who saw us in the streets wanted to buy us a coffee.
They put up a banner across from our fire station that said, "Thank you, engine man."
There's a question I ask myself every day. Why did I survive and others didn't?
I think the thing is about the Morandi Bridge is that it's come at this time when we've got used to relying on infrastructure and trusting infrastructure. And for this to happen is a shock to the engineering community as much as it is to the wider population.
A bridge that collapses is a betrayal. Earthquakes can happen, floods can happen, but when a bridge falls down, it kindles our most primal fears. It affects the faith men have in each other.